Hello and welcome to the 8th episode of Jedi Eternal. I'm one of your hosts, Andrew Bolin, alongside one of my best friends and my third cousin, Braxton Taylor.
Really, you didn't have to bring that one up. Good grief, man.
How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. We're filming this pretty early in the morning, and I am tired.
It's so early.
This is the sacrifices we make for you guys.
Yeah. Been another crazy week around here.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
I'm not moved out of my house.
Oh, yeah.
I know
exactly.
we had talked about, but anyways.
I don't think you guys can tell the difference, though. So.
Yeah, it makes no difference to you guys, but it does to me. So here we are. Yet again.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I'm excited. And just to let you guys know right off the bat, today might be a little bit of a shorter episode. We have some kind of prior engagements today. And like I said, week's been crazy, but because kind of one of those things we're like, hey, do we cancel the episode? Do we not? I'm like, I'd rather have a shorter episode than no episode at all. So
a little shorter today, but it's still going to be a fun time.
Absolutely.
We had our contest.
Yes.
And thank you all so much for really supporting that and sharing that and liking that. We saw a lot of interaction with that. But Braxton, go ahead and take us home.
Take us home, yeah. Yeah. So basically, guys, like I said, we hit our 500 likes around Sunday evening, and so I posted that. I posted the contest on our Facebook page Sunday evening, and I closed it on Wednesday. And guys, again, we just want to thank you so much because we had a little over 200 contestants, 200 people, in trying to get this book. And so thank you guys so much for that. Thank you for the page likes, and the whole point of this was to grow our community a little bit more, so we're thankful for that. But we did a randomized number drawing, and we finally have our winner of the contest. Drum roll, please.
Sorry if that just really annoying to everyone.
So without further ado, our winner of the Rise of Skywalker Expanded Edition novel is Ray Rindleman.
Hey.
Congratulations, sir. You're the winner of a brand new book. Ray Rindleman, come on down.
Okay.
All right, so let's get off that. So, Ray, if you still want the book, no, Ray. Actually, we will be sending you a direct message. Congratulations again.
Yes,
but we'll
congrats.
be sending you a direct message via Facebook, asking you for that contact information so we can make sure we pre-order.
Say, yo, give us your address.
Give us your address. No. Promise, it's only for the book. That's only what we want it for. For real, we know. We'll be very conscientious of that.
Yeah. So, anyways, congrats again to him. If we don't hear from you, we'll have to give it to someone else. So you'll have to make sure you give us that.
We'll have a 3-day grace period. And if we don't hear anything back from Mr. Rindleman within 3 days, we'll move on to the next contestant. So,
all right. Well, let's go ahead into the news.
Yeah.
Only one news story today. And that news story... Oh, actually, no, we have 2 news stories. Just kidding.
Well,
but they kind of go hand in hand.
1.5.
Yeah, 1.5. But The Mandalorian Season 2 has finished filming.
Wow.
Now, we know this because Gina Carano posted a picture on her Instagram and basically said that it was done. So at first we thought maybe it was just her episodes. Maybe it was, her part of it was finished. But then we got a post on Instagram from the director of photography. I'm not even going to attempt to say his name. And he said that's a wrap on Season 2. So we've not had an official, from Star Wars or from Lucasfilm or whatever, saying that Season 2 has finished filming, but this sure looks to me like it is. So what do you think about this?
Well, I'm excited. I mean, here's the thing. I want to make sure that it's good. You know what I'm saying? And we're approaching on the date, fairly quickly. It's coming in October. So I don't even know how many months that is off the top of my head. But it's coming close, right? We have obviously less than a year. And I would. It kind of makes sense that they're done filming. It actually, in my opinion, was kind of like, oh wow, this is a little bit later in terms of filming being completed than I expected. But then again, they did finished the last episode in December. You know what I'm saying? Or not? I'm sorry, but they aired the last episode. So
Right.
I guess they could have been working on it for a while before that. But I don't know. My point being is like I was kind of surprised to hear that it lasted this long in terms of filming. But to me, and it's kind of lead into our second news story a little bit. But I'm glad because to me that means that they're probably taking their time and they're really doing right.
Well, and with when it comes to like something like Star Wars, half of the work is after you're done filming. You know, there's so much
100%.
so much production that's still and you know all the CGI elements that have to be added and all of that stuff that really finishes the look of Star Wars, and that stuff takes a lot of time. So
100%.
they got to get this stuff done as early as possible to then go in and then you know Dave Filoni and wow, I just forgot Favreau. They're gonna have to go in and watch all the scenes and edit and decide what they want to keep and you know there's a lot to it. So
yeah, and so I mean thinking about that, filming is done. You know, it to me it almost makes sense that it would be. How do I say this? I guess I'm kind of seeing it from a movie standpoint, which is not, you know, the right way. Like, obviously, movies and TV shows are going to be different. But the high production value of The Mandalorian Season 1 is movie-like. So my point being is, like, I guess I'm kind of comparing it to the timelines of movies, but maybe I shouldn't. But but anyway, so without that being said, you know, I'm just excited for Mandalorian Season 2. I'm hoping that they take their time as they are and really creating good stories. But as we're talking about The Mandalorian, I do want to bring up our second little kind of 1.5 news topic here because it kind of goes, it's news separate, but it's also a part of it. But this kind of brings me hope to what I was just kind of speaking on, and that is Giancarlo Esposito, who plays, oh, good grief, I just blanked on his name. Moff Gideon. Moff Gideon. Anyway, as we see, and I'm going to go ahead and say spoilers for the last episode of Mandalorian, which I'm sure you've probably seen already, but, you know, just to be safe, right? But the last thing we see is Gideon kind of piercing through his shuttle, or I can't remember, it was a tie? I don't remember if it was a tie or not, but...
Yeah, it was.
Okay, so yeah, piercing through the top of the TIE fighter was what seemed to be a Darksaber. And we're like, what? And he cuts the hole open, he comes out, and he's standing there with a Darksaber. So that opened up a whole plethora of questions. Where did he get it? How does he have it? What does that mean for Mandalore? Blah, 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 blah. But with that being said, it's actually kind of a funny news thing today. Is like it was actually posted yesterday, and there's this article that says... It says Giancarlo Esposito on his readiness to work with the Darksaber, speaking to comicsoon.net, says, I really am. I want to say I've destroyed quite a few of them, and the prop guys always go, wow, you go all in.
Yeah.
So it's just, I can just imagine, like, on set, they're like, wow, you really go in on, don't you, bud? Stop breaking the expensive Darksabers.
Yeah, they're like, oh, he broke another one.
But the article goes on. I won't read the whole thing, but basically, Mr. Esposito says that you know, he's just excited for this, and he's excited for the, you know, and for him to go all out to where he's just like breaking Darksabers, it just means that it's just gonna be that much better, in my opinion, because he's in it. You know what I'm saying?
Right, and well, and also the fact that it sounds like he might use it quite a bit is also. Sounds cool.
Yeah.
So I hope that means you know, we had heard a while back there was going to be a lot of lightsaber I don't know if it's lightsaber battles or how they worded it, but there's going to be a lot of lightsabers in this, which I assume they were just referencing the dark saber, but I think it's going to be even cooler if there ends up being maybe some other lightsabers or at least one other lightsaber.
I don't know what to expect on that, but I would love to see that, you know what I'm saying, whether it's the Mandalorian wielding it or if it's another character.
Ahsoka, maybe.
Ahsoka, maybe. Cough. We would like that. Yeah, Dave Filoni, cough. You know.
She's your character. Get with it.
Yes, come on, head in the game. But anyway, I just think for me that was really important to know that, like, they're giving it their all, you know. And in fact, in the last little sentence here on this article says it was very reassuring to hear a cast member speak so highly about the storytelling. And It says, sounds like fans can expect another season of great writing.
Cool.
So I thought that was good.
Yeah, so let's go ahead into our rumors now.
Yeesh.
And one of these rumors that we have today is talking about Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. I don't know if any of you guys remember or not, but we have talked before about the Eye of Webbish Bog, which is you've probably heard me reference this before if you've listened. It's this alien thing on top of a baby head. That's the best way I can describe it. And we know that this was going to be possibly part of Trevorrow's script, is kind of where the first description of this character was, but then we've now gotten a little bit more about this, and basically Collider talked to the creature and special makeup effects creative supervisor, Neil Scanlon, and he said that they filmed that scene with director J.J. Abrams. So that's very interesting. But he also says that it is not in the Blu-ray. It is. There will not be deleted. From what I understand, there's no deleted scenes on the Blu-ray, which is very interesting.
But I thought it said it had like 20 hours or 19 hours of extended content. So
there is a lot of behind the scenes stuff. But
okay.
Which I don't think it's 20 hours worth. I think you're thinking of the
box set.
The box set.
That's yeah.
But there is going to be a lot of behind the scenes features. There's a feature film that's behind the scenes, but apparently there isn't any actual deleted scenes. And so, but if this is true and they film this, there's probably quite a few scenes out there that we could get one day. What do you think about that?
Well, and that's the thing, it's always playing that game of what if, what if this was included? What if this character was there? What if this wasn't there? And I think it'd be really interesting to see their conceptualization of some of these crazy characters, like this whole like Scanlon Bog or Webbish Bog. I mean, it's just it's so bizarre. It's so bizarre, and it's like how it would have fit into the story, I really don't know. So having the leaked scenes, hopefully someday, would really give maybe some context, because I'm just kind of curious, like, how does this even fit in? Because it looks like he's on Mustafar, right?
Yes, and so from the way I understand it, this interaction might be in the novel.
Really?
So
interesting.
I'm not 100% on that, but I've heard rumors that maybe some of this stuff is in the novel. So we'll find out very soon, and so will Ray.
And so will Ray Riddleman.
Yeah, Ray Riddleman. But they said they shot it on a lake, and that they had the whole character out there, practical character shot in a location, and all that stuff. So it would be cool to see this stuff one day. I mean, I don't know if they'll ever release it or not. But.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it would be really interesting though, and like I said, there's a lot of scenes that I think would be pretty cool to hit on if they ever get leaked.
Right, yeah.
So let's move on to our second rumor here. And this is one that I think I could talk about for a little bit, actually. And maybe not take too much time, but I think I could talk about it for a little bit. So the director of Doctor Strange has posted on, I think it was Twitter, if I'm not mistaken, that he would want to make an R-rated Star Wars movie based on the planet Hoth. So I have some thoughts on that. First of all, I'll pass it to you, but I will say this, though. I think that more than likely it would probably be something to do with the Wampas, because like Luke being trapped in that cave, and he has to like cut the Wampa's hand off or whatever, arm off, whatever. So I could imagine it being like maybe some rebels get lost on Hoth, and they're being chased by Wampas. I could definitely see that.
It'd basically be a longer, drawn-out version of the beginning of The Empire Strikes Back with Luke. I mean, that's basically what it...
So, with that being said, though, I guess the real question is, though, and this is something I have my thoughts and opinions on, and we'll go back and forth on this, but do you want to see an R-rated Star Wars film? Be honest.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think I do. And the reason for that is I personally like that Star Wars is pretty accessible to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I do appreciate sometimes a more mature, darker story for Star Wars,
Mm-hmm.
but if you do an R-rated movie, it's gonna be so restricted, of course, because that's what R means, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that rating. That rating lesson.
Yeah.
There.
You're welcome. And so I just don't think that's Star Wars. I don't think
I
that
agree.
ever will be Star Wars. I would be surprised if there's ever an R-rated Star Wars movie. If there is, it's going to be years and years down the road.
Well, and I was talking to a friend yesterday about this, and that's exactly what I was saying. I think the beauty of Star Wars is that it teaches, like, there might be some dark themes occasionally, right? But at the same time, there's always these great life lessons inside there of hope, of overcoming adversity. That it, like, even though you're maybe the underdog, blah 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 blah. What are you gonna get out of an R-rated Hoth-based? You're running from Wampas. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, it just wouldn't feel like Star Wars.
Right, and it's kind of like there's a novel called Death Troopers, and it was kind of the first, I would say, R-rated type Star Wars story.
Yeah.
It was, of course, it was just a novel, but it was considered canon at the time in Legends.
Yeah.
And I actually really enjoyed the book. It kind of had involved like zombies and stuff, and but it at the same time though it really didn't feel like Star Wars. Like it even had Han Solo and Chewbacca in it and stuff, but it felt like fan fiction the entire time I read it.
Yeah,
like I was like,
exactly.
this is entertaining and it's interesting, but it kind of felt like fan fiction.
And that's what I was gonna say. Like, if they came out with an R-rated Hoth movie, Star Wars Hoth movie, that you're running from Wampas, would I watch it? Sure, of course. And would I be entertained by it? Yeah, but at the end of the day, for me, that's just like one of those run of the mill cut off. Not cut off. What's the word I'm looking for? Like one-shot movies that really mean nothing. And at the end of the day, do we really want all that? I mean, sure, some people might want that, but for me, I don't know.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't want to see that. I want to see Star Wars be a little, like I said, I don't care that we get something like The Mandalorian that's a little darker. That's maybe not necessarily meant for kids as much as like the main movies are, but I don't think I ever want to see it get that adult.
Now, on that topic though, here's what I would want.
Okay.
Here's what I think would be most appropriate. If you're going to do a horror-based Star Wars movie, now when I say horror, I mean like suspense, thriller, that kind of genre, right? I think there's only one appropriate thing, and that is Darth Vader.
Sure.
So,
yeah,
flashback to Rogue One, the final scene.
Right.
And we see Darth Vader, cool, calm, collected, and he's like ignominious, if that's the right word. Like he's on, like he's not speaking, he's not doing any crazy movements. He's just, he's like walking through that corridor, and everyone's freaking out. He's just like slowly walking through, pinning people to the ceiling, cutting them in half, like killing people. I mean, slow. I mean, it was like the rebels, like they knew it was inevitable. Like you cannot escape. Now, a little bit of spoiler alert. If I say the name of it, it's not, you're gonna know. But I'll just say it. Spoiler alert. I'm sorry. For Jedi Fallen Order.
Oh yeah,
it's been out for a while. It's in November.
You're getting brave.
It's been out in November. The Rise of Skywalker came out after that. So
okay, yeah,
it's fine. It's fine.
All right.
That's fine. If you guys can at me. I'm sorry. Okay. So anyway, the final scenes or final episode. Oh, good grief. Final level of Jedi Fallen Order is basically you running from Darth Vader, and it felt so amazing. It was like
he's
panic
just
inducing
wrecking everything.
And just like he's like curling up pieces of the floor, throwing like entire like turbines at you. Like you try to attack him, he just blocks out of the way and like goes at you with the force. I mean,
because the whole game, you're getting better and better, and you're fighting all these different things, and then he shows up, and it tricks you. It makes you think you're gonna be able to you're gonna have this fight between them.
Yeah.
And as soon as you like go to swing at him,
exactly. I mean, from that moment forward, like you're completely 100% on defense mode, and you're running.
Yeah.
And like literally the only way that you get out of that. The only way that Darth Vader was even not even defeated, but like just held back is that they busted a hole because there's an underwater facility, and they busted a hole in the window so they could swim out. And Darth Vader had to hold back the entire ocean with the Force, and that's like the only way they even like held him back so they get away. They didn't defeat him. You know what I'm saying? So my point being with that is that I would love to. Darth Vader is it's just a perfect canvas for this beautiful painting that would be like a thriller suspense movie where you're in the viewpoint of and this could be like a standalone one-shot movie like Rogue One, Solo, and you're in the eyes of there's no Jedi, there's no famous characters, it's just rebels, and they're stuck in this facility or something, and like Darth Vader one by one.
I mean,
it's like,
I mean, it could be like a slasher, you know, cat and mouse type scenario.
I would actually love to see that.
Where instead of Jason with his with his chainsaw or whatever, you got Darth Vader going through, and I mean, hey, I think that would work.
I could definitely
that could totally work,
that,
and that could be something that is still more based towards adults, but I don't think the R rating is necessary.
PG-13 for sure, but not R rated. That's for sure. But I would love to see Darth Vader just like, you know, not and I think Darth Vader doesn't say a word the entire movie, because I think that's something else. Like I said, I was talking about yesterday with somebody else. But basically, for me, you know, humanity, you know, clings to something that they can relate to, and Darth Vader is so detached from reality in terms of his humanity. He's a completely all black like suit. You can't see his face. There's no human features. The only human features he has is his arms and legs, you know. And if he doesn't speak, you can't like relate to him in any way. You know what I'm saying? As a rebel or whatever, you know, you can't. And if you can't speak to somebody, you can't reason with them. And I think that would just make it all the more not scary, but you know what I'm saying? It would make it more tangible of their fear. Like, oh my gosh, you know. Probably the best idea. So to wrap that whole topic up there, R-rated Star Wars film, I don't think either of us wants that necessarily, especially with the whole Hoth and Wampus thing. I think the only way you'd be able to get by with that, or even just like a scary based kind of movie, would be like something with Darth Vader. So
yeah.
All right, so let's move on to our releases for
so
week.
Our releases, we have a couple different things coming up. On Tuesday, we have the Rise of Skywalker novelization.
Oh, yeah.
We also have the digital release of the Rise of Skywalker, the movie.
Yeah.
And then I think the Blu-ray comes out a couple weeks after that. So, but the digital will be released on Tuesday as well as the novel. And then Wednesday for comics, we have Star Wars issue 4 and Star Wars Adventures issue 31. And then on Friday, we will have the Clone Wars Episode 5, Gone with a Trace. And this will be starting
4 and the ending of the arc, but we'll get there when we get there. So.
Yeah, so very excited about those. Actually, we didn't discuss this, but I meant to discuss it with you. Mm-hmm. I think we should discuss the comics that were released on Wednesday. Were you able to read all 3?
I was not, unfortunately. I did get to the Darth Vader issue 2, right? Or was it 3? 2, 3? I don't know.
Well, let's talk about those real quick.
Okay, so you go ahead with the ones I didn't read.
Spoilers for the 3 comics that were released this past week. The Bounty Hunters was fine. There wasn't anything too big for me that really stood out to me, other than it was kind of neat that, of course, seeing like Boba Fett and Bosk, and also Dr. Aphra is in there as well, and
really, that's cool.
Yeah, and then her big black Wookiee friend, which I don't remember.
Chiwook?
I don't know how to say his name. Anyways, but he's really cool, and it's like black. I think they call him Black something. But anyways, so that was pretty cool to see. I'm sure that's going to go some cool places. And then, what was the other one? What was the other comic?
Kylo Ren.
Kylo Ren, yes.
Yeah.
So that that conclusion was pretty good. What was really interesting about that one is it finally does kind of like it finally shows how Palpatine was already there in the picture,
Mm-hmm.
and it actually like shows him for a second sitting there on Exegol.
Really? That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. So and then like he's talking, and it kind of shows that he's talking as Snoke, but it's yeah.
Oh, nice.
And so
Okay.
that was probably the most interesting thing to me because the rest of the story, I won't go too big into the story details for those of you who may not have finished that issue yet, but it kind of went exactly how I expected it to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't very surprised by the outcome of the story or how it went along, but I did appreciate though that they showed like Palpatine and how he was manipulating him
Yeah.
from already at that point. And
Well, and that's the thing is, in my opinion, if they are going to bring that in episode 9, they need to justify that somehow, and I'm glad that they're trying to do that, backpedal a little bit,
Yeah.
in like some of the early.
What's
Kylo Ren
interesting
life
is
and stuff like that.
I'd have to look back at the timeline to see exactly how when that issue takes place. But I mean, Palpatine's already on Exegol there, so
Yeah.
I don't know how long Palpatine was on Exegol, but it kind of seems like he may have been there quite a while.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he did have to build all the final order ships.
And I did pay attention.
all that
I
stuff.
like zoomed in to make sure, and like his finger was already gone and rotting. So because like apparently, you know, from what we've gathered, he started out as his body was probably fine at first and then has deteriorated over time. So
Right.
he's already deteriorated at that point. So it's kind of something to think about. But
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And then the final one is Darth
yeah,
Vader.
final one.
So
It ended up being what
we thought.
what we thought, what
Yeah.
we predicted.
I was kind of hoping that it was like a Palpatine kind of inner machinations of the mind, force trick, but
Yeah.
it ended up not being that.
Yeah, and
But, I mean,
yeah, it's one of the handmaidens. It was basically kind of like her, like right hand girl.
I can't remember what her name was, but
Sabe, or I don't know how you say it. Sabe.
Yeah, like
Sabe.
Sab
I have
something.
I don't know if you say it E or A, but
Yeah.
anyways, what's interesting, she is plays a very important role in the Queen's Shadow novel, and basically at the end of spoilers for that novel, but at the end of that novel,
we're getting crazy over here. All these
spoilers.
it's like a short episode, but we're gonna cram it back.
Yeah,
with
but we're gonna
spoilers.
cram full of spoilers, so you better be caught up on everything. But towards the end of that novel, she, after Padme's death and everything, she goes off and decides she's gonna try to figure out what had happened, and so this comic actually like directly references that and is kind of continuing that, which was very shocking to me. I was not expecting. I wasn't expecting it to be so connected to that novel and what that
Right,
novel
right.
was going to do.
Well, in the comic, they even calls her the Queen's Shadow, doesn't he? If I'm
It does.
mistaken.
It
Yeah.
exactly references the
was like,
novel's
what?
name, and that's why I was so shocked because that novel is a YA novel. It's it's not like it's some huge novel or anything either, but he has directly referenced it, which is neat. And so I'm curious where that's going to go, but I don't think it's going to be pretty, unfortunately.
Yeah, probably not. In fact, I would even say it's gonna get messy because basically, like, it's making him remember Padme, and not only that, but it's like I don't know. It's almost like, in his mind, if like someone's trying to deceive me and bring back these bad memories, and I must purge these memories at all costs, type of thing.
And now they're headed towards Naboo.
Yeah.
And so that'll be interesting as well. Him
Very
being back on
interesting.
Naboo. So I'm sold on the Darth Vader comic. It's good stuff.
It's already good. It's already great
just
stuff.
two issues,
Yeah.
and it's already pretty awesome. So
All right. Well, without any further ado, we're going to move on to our Q&A before we get into our main topic. But like I said, due to our prior engagements, we have to kind of cut it short today. So we actually did not post a Q&A forum yesterday. With that being said, we did have one question in the queue.
yeah,
And so we're going to go ahead and do that. But like I said, we're just trying to cut it short a little bit today because we have some things we have to do, unfortunately. But with that being said, this week's question does come from Kristen Perry. So Kristen, thanks for continually asking questions and stuff. You always ask some good ones. But she asked, where should people start in the comic series or series, whatever. I want to get into the reading the comics, but there are a lot of them. Also, what year of comics are still canon? So, Andrew, I think that you would obviously be able to, talk about this a little bit better than I would.
So, if you're gonna start, I personally recommend starting with the first run of the Star Wars novels back in 2015. That's where I would recommend anyone starting out goes. Do that. Read the Darth Vader one as well, the very first Darth Vader one. So Darth Vader 2015 is what I'll call it. Those go hand in hand, so they like go back and forth timeline wise, and they.
You said novel. You mean comic?
Oh, I'm
right?
sorry.
Yeah.
I said novel.
You did say
I did
novel.
not mean novel. I meant comic. Yes, sorry.
Good, you're good.
Yes, sorry.
I just wanted to clarify
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Sure,
Sorry for So the comics, Star Wars 2015 and Darth Vader 2015, they basically complement each other, and so that's where I would encourage anyone to start. Now, if you're talking like chronologically, that gets a little more tricky, but you'd have to go pretty far back, and it'd get confusing and stuff. There's a lot of there's like Age of Republic, which actually has one of the older stories, and then actually Star Wars, the main Star Wars comic has an issue that's like way back with Yoda, and it would get really complicated. So I would recommend, if you're starting out with comics, to read those first before anything else.
Yeah.
And then as you get through that, you can start to branch out from there. And of course, if you ever have more questions about that, you can ask those, and I'll tell you where to go next after you finish reading those. But that's where I would start. As far as where canon comics begin, so there's actually one Legends comic that ended up becoming canon, and that's actually where that begins. And it was Darth Maul, son of Dathomir. That was a Legends comic from Dark Horse, and I think that one was created back in 2014. And when Disney bought Star Wars and they went through that whole process, Darth Maul, son of Dathomir, the reason that it was created is it was actually a Clone Wars episode. And it was actually going to be the continuation of I don't know what the episode's called, but it's in season 5.
Yeah.
It's basically the last time you see Darth Maul in season 5. This story in this comic continues that, and because Clone Wars was canceled, they didn't think, of course, that we were ever going to get more, so they created this comic to continue the story.
Right.
And whenever Disney bought Star Wars, that they decided to make that comic canon because it tells part of the Clone Wars story. So
and that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So that's the very first one. But starting again, it was 2015 when the comics started becoming canon. So like if you're looking at any comic and it's 2015 on, you're good. That means it's going to be a canon comic.
Yeah, that's a pretty comprehensive answer right there. And obviously we can't go over everything, you know what I'm saying? But that gives you a good foundation to work off of for anybody, Kristen, and for anybody listening. If you want to get into the comics, now's a great time for it. A lot of great comics coming out.
And they're all going to be Marvel.
Yeah.
Or IDW if you're doing more like children's comics. But yeah, as long as you're sticking with that, if you find a comic and it's Dark Horse, I can tell you it's Legends, because that is no longer where canon comics will be. So,
which is kind of too bad, but oh well, we'll move on with that. So we're getting kind of close on the time frame we're wanting to do here today, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get into our main topic. And that is obviously review and kind of the overview of Clone Wars Season 7, Episode 4, The Unfinished Business. So, honestly, I watched this today, and as we know, this is the end of the Bad Batch arc. And I don't want to be negative, because it was fun. It was fun to watch, and there's a lot of fun characters, but At the same time, you can. And this is just my opinion. So I mean, Andrew, if you think differently, then just feel free to say so. But for me, when I was watching this, it just you could tell that it was just supposed to be another arc in the previous Clone Wars seasons.
Right.
It just felt like, okay, how the story ended, how it I don't know how I'm trying to say exactly, but how the story went on, the climax and then the ending. It felt very non-consequential. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, there was only a couple moments throughout the entire arc that was really like, okay, this is furthering the story. But now on episode 4, I thought there was going to be this big climactic ending, and again, of course, obviously, I'm sure as you know, but it's spoilers for episode 4.
Yeah.
I guess I'm sure you knew that, but might as well throw it out, right? But anyway, at the end of the episode, I was expecting the entire Bad Batch to die, right? I was expecting, one by one, each of these guys sacrificing themselves. Like, some of them are kind of selfish, some of them are kind of bullheaded, but at the end of the day, they're still willing to sacrifice for what they believed was right, and, one by one, that they was going to sacrifice themselves. And at the very end, Ranger Hunter, which is the main leader, I expected him to be like, he's all by himself now, and then he had to, like, go do one last sacrificial thing. We talked about this in the last episode, but that's kind of what I expected, and that's not what happened. And in fact, not only did they not die, Echo didn't even die. So what are your thoughts on that, Drew?
Yeah, I am, I feel like Clone Wars has gotten so big now and has blown up compared to like when it was first on the air, back on Cartoon Network. And so we've come to expect so much from it now.
That's
because of some of the amazing episodes we've gotten and things. And now that it's brought back, we're just expecting this huge, amazing stuff. And so this arc is just kind of normal.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of surprising, that it's not a little more, I guess.
Right. And then here's the thing. Is it good Clone Wars? Yes. It's good Clone Wars. It's classic Clone Wars. But like you said, this is the final season, right?
Right.
And to me, it's kind of like, and again, I'm not trying to be negative, because on this podcast we want to be positive, we want to, but at the same time we want to be free. We want to be free to express our opinions. And so, but it's kind of like, for instance, for me, and I'm saying this is the truth for everybody, but for like Last Jedi, right? We only had 3 movies, right, to complete the final trilogy to end off the entire saga. But yet I felt like some of them, like Last Jedi, was kind of wasted, right? Like they had like huge swaths and chunks of the movie where like it meant nothing. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like it's almost like that's how it feels for season 7 of Clone Wars, at least for this arc, is that we're taking a big chunk, four episodes out of 12, and it was fun to watch. Right. Just like Last Jedi. Last Jedi was a fun watch, and I won't say that. And the production value was great, but I didn't feel like it carried on this story, or there was no revelations. There was nothing consequential.
Right.
If they threw out those episodes, it wouldn't mean anything. Right. So that's my opinion. I think, and the thing is as we know, the Bad Batch arc was written and was created many years ago.
Right.
And they essentially just tweaked that. So I don't know, frankly, what to think about it.
Well, do you think that this next arc is going to turn things around a little bit for you?
Well, that's a good question. And honestly, and this is something that I do think is very true. I think that the problem with this arc is that it was, like I said, it was created many years ago to be just one of the arcs of the 6 seasons. Right. You know what I'm saying? Not one of the final arcs of the final season.
Right.
So with that being said, I do imagine that the Siege of Mandalore, Ahsoka arc, I imagine this is probably going to be pretty epic. Now, I hope that's the case. I don't know for a fact, but I do think so. What do you think about it?
I'm really excited about the next arc. It's completely unknown territory. I don't believe this was an arc that was already prepared and ready, at least that I'm aware of.
Of what, the second one, or?
Yeah, this coming arc with
yeah.
Well, we know that the Siege of Mandalore was at least so the third arc, the Siege of Mandalore. We know that one was planned. The story was planned out. I don't know if they had ever actually like started animation or anything like they had with the Bad Batch.
Yeah.
And so with this Ahsoka arc, maybe they'd already had that story figured out as well.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I'm not aware of it being like partially finished or anything like the Bad Batch was.
Yeah.
So I think there's so much more room to breathe in these next two arcs and what they can do, and I hope we get to see a lot more like interconnection with all of the new canon we've gotten since these Clone Wars seasons were on air. You know, there wasn't a whole lot of new Star Wars. Now we got so much more since those Clone Wars episodes.
Exactly.
So I'd like to see a little more of that stuff connect in these next two arcs.
And I would imagine that we will see that, but you know, obviously we can't know for sure until that time comes. But you know, I was glad. You know, looking back to the episode, I did like that Echo wasn't corrupted. You could tell that he was struggling with it, I think, but I do like that he was not like completely like changed mentally, and we got to see. You know, I was glad about that.
Yeah, they kind of hinted like something was coming in the last episode, so the fact that nothing did was a little surprising to me.
Well, and even in this episode, the sniper, whatever his name is, says like his mind's been controlled the separatists for this long. You know, who's to say that he's, you know? So,
but I would say, I could be wrong, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see the Bad Batch again in the last arc on the Siege of Mandalore. Mm-hmm. They might be there.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
That whole gang might be there again, and that would kind of make a little more sense why we got this first arc. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, that may not be the case at all, but I think it would be cool if they were there. Mm-hmm. And then I really enjoyed the part when Mace Windu and Obi-Wan jump down and Mace Windu just like starts his little speech.
Dude, I'd crack me up.
And Obi-Wan like looks over, I'm like, really?
You really think this is gonna work? You know?
and then of course the droid's like, blast him.
Dude, that was so funny. It's like, turn from your ways, and we will spare you. Blast him. You know, dude, I died when I watched.
And Obi-Wan was like, well, you know, it was
a good try, I guess. You know, it's like they're not sentient beings. They're programmed. So. You know, but
it was totally a Mace Windu move, though.
It was.
And Mace Windu's like, I've killed like 100,000 of you or something.
That was so funny, dude. I really
that was pretty good.
That
was probably my favorite moment.
It was.
Well, and let's talk about the Anakin moment, though.
Yes, and I think that's very important to talk about. Is that, you know, we get to see, and obviously as we already knew this was going to happen. They're building up to that moment in episode 3 of the movie, where he turns to the dark side, and what steps are we taking? Because we don't see those steps anywhere in the movies, right? So I'm glad that they're trying to get to that in the show. So for those of you who may not exactly know what we're talking about, who's watched it, it's kind of like, well, I'm not sure what you mean. Essentially, we get to see him talking to Admiral Trench in the main cockpit, or whatever you want to call it, the captain's whatever, I don't know, the main part of the ship where you control it, whatever that may be called. And basically he's like, if you don't give me the answers, I'll kill you. And Trench is like, oh, the Jedi, the Jedi, you know, they have honor and they don't kill. And Anakin just looks at him and is like, I'm not weighed down by that kind of sentiment or that weak. Oh, he calls it weakness.
Yeah, he says,
I'm not weighed by
weaknesses.
Yeah, I'm like, whoa, that's pretty crazy. Like, that's one of the first definitive, well, maybe not the first, but, you know, one of the main definitive times we're seeing Anakin like, I'm not a Jedi. I'm not weighed down by these weaknesses. You know what I'm saying?
It's also one of the first scenes, like when he's saying some of that stuff, that he actually sounds like Hayden Christensen.
Yeah, dude, he sounded exactly like Hayden Christensen.
Most of the time, he doesn't sound like him, and I think that was a choice they purposely made because a lot of people thought Hayden Christensen was whiny and blah blah blah. But in that moment when he got like really upset and stuff, he sounded just like him, and I was like, oh, that made me really feel like he's progressing into the character he is at the at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith.
And I'm glad that they're thinking about that. You know, I'm glad that they thought, okay, we need to make sure that we're leading up to. So again, it's not just like this rip off the Band-Aid or whatever. It's such a stark revelation. Oh, well, it's he's evil. Well, no, there had to be a build up to that, and I'm glad we're seeing that. So I thought that was... Oh, and then obviously, like, instead of having mercy or whatever, like, Trent tries to shock him or whatever, he just turns around and just stabs him straight through and just drops him.
Doesn't even look over again. He just stabs him, just moves on. He stabs him,
and then just, like, with his angry look on his face, he just, like, de-ignites his saber and just walks over and grabs the detonator. And I'm just like, oh, my gosh.
He's like, oh, Ricker like this.
Yeah, Ricker. Oh, Ricker's going to like this. Yeah, and having a certain joke here, But anyway, overall, the episode was fun to watch. To be frank, I'm glad that the arc is over. I do think we're going to be... I expect to see great things with the new next 2 arcs, and I'm excited to see.
Yeah, I agree with you. I kind of was ready for this arc to be over with so we can see some like really like new stuff.
Exactly.
So I'm really, of course, excited to catch up with Ahsoka again and see where she's at in her story, and maybe see some of the mental effects of her, leaving the temple and how she's dealing with that, and that kind of stuff will be interesting as well. So.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I think there's going to be great things on the horizon with the show. But without further ado, I think we're going to go ahead and get to our conclusion today. Thank you guys so much for listening. Oh, we're running a little bit behind on time. I'm sorry about that. To Andrew.
I'm going to be really late.
Okay, so I want to thank everybody so much for your guys' continued support towards this podcast. It's been so great to have you guys listen and participate and all these things. We also want to thank you guys for participating in the contest these last few days. Once more, Ray Rindleman, congratulations to you, sir. Please keep your eye out for a DM coming your way for that contact info. But for the rest of everybody else, including Mr. Rindleman, please like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter. Like I said, we have our weekly news, polls, discussions, and more. And we're going to try to get back into that more. The last couple weeks have been a little sparse, and that's just because that's what the Star Wars universe has felt like recently. But with that being said, please also follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. Many of you have, and we're thankful for that. We thank you for listening, and join us next week for episode 9. Last but not least, may the Force be with you, and we thank you for joining the Jedi Eternal.